Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third session of our three-part social media workshop series, Social Media Strategy, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, led by digital marketing expert Kristen Naher, CEO of Bootcamp Digital. This final session, How to Prioritize Your Efforts on Social Media, focuses on workflow and measurement. This workshop is meant to be highly interactive, so Krista will be taking questions and comments throughout this 90-minute session. Simply type them in the chat box in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen throughout the session. Please note the session is being recorded so you can view it again. Let's get started, everyone. Welcome, Krista.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and hello, everybody, and welcome to our workshop today. So for those of you, I see some familiar faces, I should say names, but for those of you who have been joining us throughout the sessions, really what we're going to focus on today is sort of workflow, productivity, and sort of tips and tricks to help you to manage your social media efforts more effectively. Because one of the things that we saw in the survey results was that time, I should have played like time as my intro music, but one of the things we saw in the survey results was that time is a big factor in trying to achieve your objectives. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about how do you prioritize your efforts. I'm going to share with you some of the best social media tools out there to help you be more productive. I'll give you some productivity tips, and then we'll also talk about measurement and KPIs so that you know if what you're doing is working, and you can build a mindset and an approach whereby you are continuously improving to get better results every time you're doing this. Now, for our session today, please feel free to jump in and ask questions as we go. You should see in the Zoom control panel the option to chat. I will keep my eye on the chat through the duration of this, so definitely type in any comments or questions into the chat. Also, my goal for this session, since it is our last of the 3 sessions together, my goal is to really make sure I'm answering any questions that you have and you are set up for success. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to type them into the chat, and we'll have some open Q&A time at the end as well. To get started, if you're new joining us, we have a ton of resources that we've made available for you in Dropbox. If you click on the link that's in the chat, and for those of you who have been joining all of our sessions, it's the same link we use every time, but if you take a look at the chat, you'll see a Dropbox link. You can click on that, and there you'll find a copy of the slides from all of the sessions, and you'll find a number of resources that we've put together for you. There's an action planner that you can use to help build your plan. And if you click in the download section, we also put together quick start guides, checklists, and guides for getting started on social networks. So you really have everything you need to hit the ground running and get results. So with that, let's dive in and talk about how you can save time in order to maximize your results. So I mentioned already that this is sort of the third part in a 3-part workshop. We started with strategy and content planning, and this is really the foundation of your success. If you don't have a clear strategy and you're not thinking about the multiple things you may want to achieve, you're unlikely to get business results. When we do our content planning, we also want to think of that full marketing funnel and ask ourselves, are we hitting the intended objectives of each stage of the funnel, or could we use something for more than one stage? And for those of you who joined us last week, we looked at an Instagram post by actually someone in these workshops, by Ital Flowers. And what I loved about that post was that the post was really showcasing an event, but they even included contact information and other content further down in the post. So it's more about that full funnel and saying, okay, even if this is maybe a brand equity post showing the care and attention we put into an event, let's get more from it by also adding in our contact info. Then we talked about channel optimization. So we covered a lot of tips for Facebook and Instagram specifically last week. And then this week, our focus is really on workflow and measurement. So that's what we're really going to focus on. So I already mentioned this, our starting point always should be strategy, right? Make sure we're doing what matters and we're thinking of every stage of the funnel from a content standpoint. And I would encourage you, this marketing funnel, if you can sort of take it with you and either like imprint it in your brain or even just make a sticky that you keep by you in your place of business. But one of the things I do want to point out about this marketing funnel and strategy overall is that this is something beyond just digital that you can always be thinking about. So, every time someone goes into your store, you have the opportunity to brainstorm, okay, how could I use this interaction to get something more? What could I do to make it talkable? I was recently working with a dentist, and one of the things that they implemented that was really successful is whenever somebody has a cavity-free checkup, they just made a nice Instagrammable sign and started taking the photo of the person. And what they found was over half of people would post it on social media and tag them in it. So by getting this mindset of how do I make everything do work harder for me, how can I use someone coming in my store for one of these stages, that's going to start training you to really be a marketing machine. When we talked about channels, our focus has been on Facebook and Instagram, so we talked about prioritizing. And the key idea, something I really, really, really hope you walk away from, is to do fewer things better. So this is something that I would say isn't a unique issue for florists. It's something that I think all small businesses can really learn from. But it's easy to feel overwhelmed in social media, feel like you're not doing enough, feel like you need to do more. But what you want to do is step back and try to do fewer things, but do them better. So if you're not on any platforms right now, choose one to really put your time and effort behind. If you're already active on a couple of platforms, but maybe you're not feeling like you have traction, choose one to work on. But always choose one thing to focus on doing better so that you don't get too overwhelmed. I always talk about you can easily get on the hamster wheel of social media. And the hamster wheel to me, a hamster wheel, you run and run and run, and you don't go anywhere. And so what can easily happen with the hamster wheel of social media is you're posting content and you're doing it regularly, but you're not seeing any traction or movement. And we'll talk a little bit about measurement today, but the big idea here is that if you focus on fewer things, you'll have the time and energy to put toward them to make sure you're doing a really good job. And so really trying to sort of build that in to say, okay, let me focus where I have time and energy and try to do those things better. And you can think about this for your overall strategy or even for an individual tool. So let me give you an example of this. I'm very active on LinkedIn because I work in a B2B business, right? So I target other businesses. And so I'm really, really active on LinkedIn. And when I think about my efforts on LinkedIn, one of the things that I realized was when I log into LinkedIn, the first thing I do is I go to my messages to see who is messaging me where. So the first thing I do on LinkedIn is I look at my messages. And one of the things that I noticed was that I was spending, let's say every week I spent an hour going through those messages. I get probably 100 messages a week. So it probably takes me more like 2 hours a week to go through them, which is a lot of time, right? In a 40-hour work week, 2 hours is a significant time investment. So if I spend 2 hours looking at my LinkedIn messages, one of the things I noticed was that 90% of my time was going to what I would basically call spam messages. So if I think of spam messages, they're people who just automatically send you these super salesy messages, right? So someone connects with you and they're like, hey, Krista, I noticed that you're a digital agency and thought you would be interested in blah, blah, blah thing I'm selling you, right? So it's just sales stuff. They don't even customize these, but that's what I'm spending 90% of my time on. In this quadrant, that is a time drain. It's taking time. It's taking 90% of my time on LinkedIn messages, but it has no impact. And as a result, what's happening is all of my time is going into responding to these LinkedIn messages. And then I have no time left over for the big bets or the ROI center, the people who are like, hey, I would love to talk to you about doing a workshop for me. I don't get to their message in time because I'm spending too much time on the time drains, or I just respond to them really quickly because I have 100 messages to get through. What I need to do to be more efficient is to realize what my time drain is. Okay, 90% of these messages, I should just delete. Look, if someone didn't even spend 5 minutes to really customize this for me, why on earth am I giving them my time? Right? I need to just delete those messages and take those 2 hours and use it for business development and responding to the messages that matter. Then I would get a big impact from the same amount of time that I'm spending on LinkedIn. So what I would encourage you to do and to take a look at is what we call the investment impact chart. And I use this to prioritize everything I do, not just my social media. We actually do this as a company for all of our marketing activities. But what we try to do basically is we think of all of the things that we could be doing, right? So it could be as simple as updating our social media headers to be more consistent, all the way to big ideas, launching a new product, improving our Facebook content, getting more videos into Facebook. So you can think about this in the sense of the things that your time goes toward now, as well as the things that you would like your time to go toward. So essentially what you want to do is have this thing of sticky notes. I love stickies. Get sticky notes and write down all of the things you are doing and all of the things you could be doing for marketing. You could do this just for social media or all of your marketing together. And then I literally create a graph on my wall, and we try to categorize everything based on the investment. So how much time and effort does it take, and the impact? How likely is this to generate sales? And sometimes you don't know, right? So sometimes it's a little bit of guessing. I always think if I'm guessing, I try and be conservative. So if I think, well, maybe the impact is medium, I'll go a little bit lower if I'm not sure. I like to be conservative, but everyone can have a different approach. But what this will help you to do is to say, okay, what are the things that I really want to focus on to move my business forward? And there's not a magical answer, even though I know, at the end of the day, you're all in a similar business or the same business, arguably, but each business is at a different stage of maturity. If you're already active on all your social networks, then maybe your ideas are really focused on improvement and you need to think about what it takes to improve your results there. If you're just starting, it could be a higher investment because you need to create the accounts and create the following. But what you really want to think about doing is charting everything that you do on this investment impact to help to see what are the time drains, what are these things that you spend a lot of time on and don't have big results that are costing you from working on the things that are really driving impact and driving your business forward. The other thing to keep in mind with this chart is that the investment can be different for every business. So if you asked me to get on TikTok, for example, and you said, Krista, how would you rate TikTok for your business? If it was my best guesstimate for my own business, I would put it as a time drain. I would say, man, it's going to take me a lot of time and effort because I don't use TikTok personally. I have to build an audience there. So I know it's high investment. When I think of the impact with most of our B2B clients, they're probably not using TikTok right now. So I would put it as lower impact of all the things that I could be doing. I would put it as low impact, high investment. Now, let's say on the other hand, I'm already using TikTok personally. So let's pretend I'm an active TikTok user and I love it. And I'm already dripping with ideas of things that I could be doing for TikTok. For me, then, this could very easily be a this could very easily be low-hanging fruit. It could be an easy win for me because even though the impact maybe isn't huge, the investment is lower because I already know how to do it and I have the content, ideas, etc. So what you kind of want to start to think about where possible is you want to start thinking about, okay, what are the biggest opportunities for me in terms of my in terms of my marketing? And then ideally what you want to do is prioritize accordingly so that you're spending more time and effort on the things that matter most to you. And that's really how you're going to start to maximize your time and effort, is by getting a little bit smarter about how you're spending your time. Now, one of the questions that I saw come in, I'm trying to find it. I see Amy has asked about, for the social networks, what are the age groups on each platform? And I want to share, I'm going to share with you 2 resources. And what I will do is I will drop these into the Dropbox immediately after this event. But I have 2 resources that I'll share with you to help you to maximize your effort on social media. This is the first one. This is social media best practices by channel. So you can see for every channel, how often to post, when to post, hashtags, best performing content, video length, content tips, and audience building tips. So this is great for sort of like at a glance, here's the best social networks to be on. The other chart, here it is. The other chart that I'll share with you. Let me just find it here. Here we go. They look almost the same, but the other chart I'll share with you is choosing the right social network. So this shows the user base, the gender split, the ages, education and income, what it's best for, ideal content, etc. So I'll share these 2 charts with you so that you have some more details on the social networks that are going to work best for you. And actually what I will do is I'm going to copy them. I'm going to do this literally right now. So you'll see them in the Dropbox shortly. And that way you don't have to wait if you want to get these 2 resources now. So here we go. Okay, perfect. So it'll just take a few minutes for those to sync, and then you will have those. So that will help you if you're kind of like, ooh, where do I want to spend my time? Or you want any of the best practices. These are literally the 2 most popular documents that we've ever created. So hopefully those will help you to rank your investment impact as well. So you can say, okay, here's what I believe will be most impactful for my business. But essentially, your starting point to prioritize really should be using this chart, because we focused on Instagram and Facebook because those are the biggest and most obvious platforms, but there's probably other things rolling around in your head. And again, it could be, when I gave you my example of LinkedIn, I could try to plot LinkedIn as an overall strategy, but I can even drill down and say, okay, what about how I manage my inbox? Where would I rate the different activities just within my LinkedIn management? And I could recreate this whole investment impact chart just for how I manage LinkedIn. If I plotted every LinkedIn activity that I do every week on here, then I could get a really good picture of, am I spending my time on LinkedIn wisely? And what are things that are maybe wasting my time that I shouldn't really be doing? And so that's the true value of using this investment impact graphing for your activities. So if you're taking a list of your to-do list sort of as you walk away from this, I would really recommend step back, look at everything you're doing, and start plotting your activities on here, because what you want to do is find these time drains and just get rid of them. And that's a huge way to sort of be a little bit more strategic in your time. So once you know exactly what you're going to be doing, the next thing that you want to do is start building out a workflow. And essentially what a workflow is it's basically just a way that you're going to approach your work in order to optimize your output. So a workflow really is just a process or a system that you use to get stuff done. There's a number of reasons why workflow is so important. The first is it streamlines and standardizes the way you do something. So when you think of social media, if you were to leave it to me, let's say I was running my own social media, which I try to do on occasion. I'm like, oh, let me do it for a little bit. I need to sharpen my skills. But what ends up happening is, 1 week I'll post 3 times on Instagram, and then the next week I could post 10 times. And it's basically because I'm posting based on when I have time and energy and capacity. What I really want to do is have a system of how often I'm going to be posting. And I see somebody is off mute. I just want to check if you have a question, or maybe you just unmuted by mistake. Okay, I think that was a mistake. So what it does, having a workflow, is it allows you to sort of streamline and standardize the way that you're doing things. So you say, okay, I'm going to post on Instagram every day, and this is how I'm going to approach doing it. The big benefit of having a workflow, the one big benefit, which a lot of you asks for, is it saves you time. So I have a slight obsession with time management, to be honest with you. I did a TEDx talk on this like 7 years ago. And basically, the way that I think of time management is that even if something, let's say you do something every day, like post to Instagram, and because you're doing it efficiently, every time you post to Instagram, it just takes you 2 minutes extra. If you do that twice a day, that's 4 minutes a day you waste, which adds up in the course of a year to 24 hours. So over half of a work week, just by this tiny little inefficiency. So what a workflow does is it saves you time, because instead of task switching and trying to do things on the fly, you have a system that's organized and scheduled of how you're going to do it. And I'm going to show you 2 standard workflows next. So it saves you time because you try to work in batches or groups. So if I think about it, if I have to create 5 Instagram posts, and I do one Monday, one Tuesday, one Wednesday, one Thursday, one Friday, each one might take me 10 minutes, let's say, to find the photo, take the photo, upload it, caption it, etc. So that's 50 minutes for 5 Instagram posts. Instead, if on Monday I say, okay, I'm going to schedule out Instagram posts for the whole week, I could probably do 5 Instagram posts in 20 minutes. So now I'm spending 20 minutes instead of 50 minutes because I'm posting everything at once and I'm scheduling it out. So the other big advantage is that it can save you a lot of time because you're kind of working in batches. And that also then reduces your day-to-day pressure. Now, again, everyone is different in terms of what is going to work for them and help them. If you're really great at capturing in the moment stuff and posting it quickly, this may not be a specific tip that saves you money or time. Time is money, but it might not specifically save you. If, on the other hand, you're somebody who really wants to stay focused, then you could find that it actually saves you a ton of time if you struggle with what to post and you find it a little frustrating and maybe you don't have the creativity you wish. So what it does is it saves you time, but it reduces this day-to-day pressure where every day you don't have to think, oh gosh, I need something for Instagram. What am I going to post? So it can make it easier for you. The other advantage of having a workflow is, generally speaking, you'll create better content. And the reason you'll create better content is because you're going to get into a content creation zone where you create great stuff. And then the last one is you're going to repurpose your top performers because you'll be looking at analytics. So if I posted something that did great last month, unless it was for Mother's Day, which obviously doesn't happen this month, it might be something that I could reuse or replicate or do something different then. So those are the 5 primary advantages of using a workflow. So let me talk to you about the 2 most common workflows for small businesses and what those basically look like. So the first is a monthly workflow. If you're working in a monthly workflow, what this means is that so the idea of a workflow for social media management usually is that you create most of your content at once, and then you will do some day-to-day management on top of it. So the way that I think of working in a monthly workflow for social media is, let's say I'm doing a monthly workflow. And again, I'm going to show you monthly and weekly, but you could choose every 2 weeks or something in the middle based on what works best for you. But the idea of a monthly workflow is that the first thing I do as I get started is I look at my last 30 days and say, okay, what worked? What didn't work? Why? How do I do better? Even though I can give you a million success tips and you could look at other people who are successful, you could replicate a successful person and not see that same success. And it's because your audience is different, how they respond to you is different. Sometimes the devil is in the details. So what you want to do is start by looking at your last 30 days. What went well? What didn't go well? What can you learn? Then let's say my workflow is starting on the beginning of the month. So let's say my workflow is going to start July 1st. I want to do this maybe 5 days before the start of the month, or maybe I do a week before. But the first thing I do is I spend maybe just 30 minutes analyzing my last 30 days. So sometimes analysis feels like a big, heavy term, but it just means look at stuff, see how it performed. Then I'm going to schedule out my base posts for the next month. So like, let's say Mother's Day. I know Mother's Day is coming up. I don't need to be surprised and wait until the day before to decide what I'm going to post. Ideally, what I want to do is schedule out as much as possible. And I think of this as my base content. So it doesn't mean that I don't post anything else. What it means is that I have this base content going out that's already taken care of that I don't need to think about. And then on top of that, let's say someone comes in and I get a great picture of them, then I post that as well. But I have a base content of maybe it's my standard promotions, some of the tips that I've created that I know are going to do well, that kind of stuff. And I have that all scheduled before the month starts. And then when the month kicks off, I don't really need to think about anything except the additional content I'm going to post and monitoring comments. So you can also do this on a weekly basis. Even on a weekly basis, ideally, you would still want to analyze your content monthly. But what you basically would do is at the beginning of the week on Monday, step back, look at how the last week did, and then schedule out your stuff for the week ahead. So it doesn't replace fully in the moment real-time content, but especially if you struggle with the time it all takes or the stress that you're forgetting, this really allows you to schedule stuff out. And one of the things to keep in mind is that if you're one of these people who can do real-time content well, that is great. And there's some people who are really good at it. Hey, I'm at an event, let me take some pictures, ready to go. If that's a struggle for you, though, you still can take the pictures at the event, but you post them the following Monday for the upcoming week. It's okay if you took the picture last Tuesday and it's posting this Tuesday. Nobody actually knows, right? Unless it's linked to a specific timely holiday. But a post can do just as well, even if it's posted a couple days after the event. But what these workflows really let you do is to get organized. And I'll ask a question for you. I know some of you are more experienced than others, but are any of you using sort of either weekly, monthly, or bi-weekly workflows as a way to manage your social media? If you are, if you can just share it in the chat, I'd be curious to see those of you who are experienced, what you're using and what works for you. I see different things work for different businesses. Most agencies that you would work with, so if you were to hire an agency, most agencies that I work with work on a monthly basis, and then they layer real-time content on top. Most small businesses work off of no workflow, to be honest. They just post stuff as it happens, and then they feel a lot of pressure and struggle with the time because they're doing this day by day. If you can set up that 1 hour on Monday, 1 hour on Monday to get all your posts done for the week is much more efficient than if you take 15 minutes a day. And that's what we want to think about with the workflow, is getting this stuff scheduled out so that you take the time to do it well. And then the other nice thing about using these workflows is that when you create your content in bulk like that, you can do it like you kind of get into the creative zone, you get a little bit of focus. Maybe you're thinking, oh, I don't know what hashtags to do. You can just research them really quickly, right? So by also working in this method where you're posting a bunch of stuff at once, you can do some additional research, and that's going to help your content, frankly, to just do a lot better. So the advantage is the workflow is going to also help your content to do better. So what is the key to an amazing workflow execution? It comes down to social media tools. And if any of you are already using social media tools, so if you use maybe Hootsuite or Buffer or something else, Sendable, there's literally thousands and thousands. But maybe share in the chat any social media tools you're using, just so we can see. Again, it's nice to learn from each other. So if you use any social media tools, please drop them in the chat so we can kind of see what you're using and learn from it. But what most social media tools will do is they give you this sort of one-stop shop. So I'm working with an agency right now that's focusing on managing social media for small businesses. And they already said, okay, how are we supposed to track comments across all these places? Yeah, you're not. Use a social media tool, you log into one place and you can see all your comments there. If you use the right tool, you might even be able to link up your Google Business there, and then you can see all your business reviews and get notifications from those as well. So what you can really do is create sort of a one-stop shop where you're getting all of your social content in one place to schedule, as well as to look and respond to any comments. So what I love is within the social media tool, I can respond to the comments right there. So somebody had asked me something recently about Twitter, and I was like, I only go into actually twitter.com when I'm teaching a class. Otherwise, I just use a social media tool and I can see my comments and respond to them there. Same with Facebook, same with Instagram. I don't really go into any of these social networks unless I'm teaching a class, because I do it all through my tool. And I'm going to show you some tools that you can use and give you some sort of pros and cons. But it's a one-stop shop for everything. You can schedule your content in advance, and you can also respond in one place and view your analytics. So it really allows you to do everything in one place. So what are some popular tools for social media, and how much do they cost? Well, the first one I'm showing you is free. You can't beat that price. This is Facebook's Creator Studio. And so Facebook, by the way, when we talk about Facebook, and you can see it on the screenshot, it's Facebook and Instagram together in here. Facebook owns Instagram, so all of the Facebook services, for the most part, also do apply to Instagram. So what you'll see in Facebook Creator Studio is for both Facebook and Instagram, you can create posts and actually schedule them out in advance. You can even create Facebook stories in here. I have not seen Instagram stories here, but they are supposed to be active, I believe, but I've never seen them actually be able to be scheduled from here. But essentially what you can do here is, if you're just using Facebook and Instagram, using Creator Studio, which is 100% free, you just need to have a Facebook business account. You can come in here and actually set up all of your content in advance. And they even have some content creation tools built right in to make it easy for you to use. So if you want totally free, something that lets you schedule with Facebook Messenger, all of your direct messages and comments from both Facebook and Instagram will automatically flow through Business Manager if you've connected those two. And so if the only platforms you're interested in are Facebook and Instagram, you can fully manage them just through the free tools available through Facebook. And that's Facebook Creator Studio and Facebook Business Manager. And both of these tools are 100% free and available. And you can schedule, you can get all of your comments in one place, look at anything else that you want to look at. The next one is one of the, I would say, older social media tools out there, which is Hootsuite. And Hootsuite, it's called Hootsuite because it's like an owl going hoot, hoot. It started with Twitter, although I don't know why an owl would be associated with Twitter, but it sure is. So Hootsuite used to be one of the most popular options because of the price point. It used to be like $10 or $15 to start an account. Now accounts for Hootsuite start at about $40 a month. So it's gotten a little bit more expensive to get started. But if I can make a quick point about the cost of social media tools is, and I'm going to say this just before somebody asks the question, but my biggest pet peeve question, I've done this for 15 years, And my biggest pet peeve question is when people say, what free tools should I be using? And let me tell you why I hate that question. Because implicit to that is that your time is not worth money. Think about it for a second. If I told you using this tool would save you 10 hours a month, why do you care if it's $40? Surely your time is worth more than that, right? 10 hours a month for 40 bucks? Yeah, I would take that. And then I could have more time to do other things to grow my business or sit outside and get a tan or something. So I just want to point this out so you don't get too cost minded. Always think about the return on investment of your time. Is it $5 an hour, $10 an hour? But what is that time return on investment? And then ask yourself, is it saving me at least this much time? Or is it helping me to do this at least a little bit better? And that's a better judge for what you should be investing. I had heard someone come off mute for a second. I just thought I would see if anyone had a question or a comment they wanted to make. Okay. And so I see Shelby is sharing a comment here. Every Monday, when all our designers are creating new arrangements for our cooler in our showroom, I go out and take pictures of the different arrangements with other gift items we sell and input them into Instagram and create a draft. And it allows me to create multiple drafts so I can later go in and just hit upload throughout the week. That's a great idea. Actually, that's a nice hack. I've never heard of someone doing that. So thank you for sharing. So basically, you can set up your Instagram posts as drafts and then just go in when you want to post them and hit send. Also, if you connect your Facebook with Instagram, you can automatically upload it to both. Absolutely. So when you go to post on Instagram, right below, it'll say like, do you also want to post this on Facebook? And you can turn that on and post there. So that's also a great hack. Something though that Shelby, you might want to, so I love this workflow, and if it works for you, certainly don't mess with it. But something that you could consider is, and now I'm kind of checking on my phone, the Creator Studio app. But the only thing that could help, and now I'm looking to see if there's a specific Creator Studio app or not. But what you could do, because it's what I like about your workflow is that you're doing this 100% on your mobile device. So that's great because you don't have to like get them on a computer, put them in a scheduler. But what you could consider is if you were to use, there is a Creator Studio app. I just double checked. But what you could check is if you could put them in the Creator Studio app, which again, it's a free app from Facebook, then schedule them out. Then you don't even have to remember to go in and undraft them and post them. So it just might save you that one step in your workflow if you use Creator Studio. I'm looking to just double check the functionality, but certainly you could try that to see if you can schedule your posts out through Creator Studio, and that would just save you that step of having to remember. I know for me, something that always leads to stress is when I worry I'm forgetting to do something. But you know what you're doing, if you added to that just a simple alarm on your phone every day or something, you could do that as well. So that's a nice, easy workflow. So the only thing I would suggest, it would stress me out having to remember to undraft them. So you could always use Creator Studio to schedule them out, or actually any of these tools have mobile apps, so you can do them as well. And Jessalyn is sharing that she's been using Planoly for multiple accounts. Yeah, Planoly is another really popular one. I'm not sure. I'm going to look up on another browser the price point. But there's a lot of different apps that do this kind of stuff. Why a lot of people like Planoly is that it's a little bit more visual, so you can really see your posts and kind of how they're coming together. And actually, this is super cheap. So it starts, there's free accounts, and then it starts at $7 a month for 2 social profiles. So that's a really, really good price point in terms of what it does. The only downside, I think, of this is that I believe it's only Instagram and Pinterest. So I don't think you can do Facebook through this as well if you wanted to, or if you're using LinkedIn, for example. I think it's only going to give you Instagram and Pinterest if I'm looking at it correctly. But if Instagram is your main platform, then that would be great. And oh, Jesselyn's saying it does offer Facebook. You do just have to pay extra for it. So, oh yeah, I see. It's $23 a month to add custom social profiles. So it's a little bit more if you want to be adding more accounts, but there's a lot of different tools that can work well for different purposes. So this one also, I know why a lot of people like it is that the mobile apps are really well developed. So it makes it really easy to do that. Tina is saying, hopefully I'm saying all your names right, is saying that they use Spot On for credit cards and they have a link to your social media profile right on your dashboard or right on their dashboard. So also great. I mean, the key to me to using a tool is to be able to set it and forget it, or to save yourself time in some way. That's really what I look for. So Hootsuite is a great option. It's really easy to post content. And what I also like about Hootsuite is you can create these little dashboards where you can see, let's say, if I think of my social media strategy, right? Maybe my strategy involves posting, but ideally I'm responding to comments, and maybe I want to look at neighborhood hashtags. So when I used to live in Cincinnati, I lived in a neighborhood called Over the Rhine, and people used hashtag this is OTR to post stuff about the neighborhood. So what I like about Hootsuite is you can create a custom dashboard where you see your posts, you see your comments, and you could even follow hashtags and comment on the hashtagged posts right from there. So it really allows more broad community management, which could be an advantage if that's something you want to do. Buffer is another social media scheduling tool that's really popular. Where Buffer really does best is if you have a presence on a lot of different accounts. So let's say you're on Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram, and maybe you even have a LinkedIn company page and a LinkedIn personal profile. You can post all of the content to all of those places just from one spot. So what I love Buffer for is if you just want to post stuff, it's great for that. If you want the community management features, it doesn't really do that so well. So what I like about Hootsuite is that it really does allow you to do everything in one spot, from managing comments to following hashtags to commenting on posts. Buffer is a really simple scheduling tool. So if you want to just schedule content out, that's what I really like Buffer for. I know another popular one, I have a client right now I'm working with who is active on that, is Sendable. I don't know if any of you are using Sendable. The one thing I like about Sendable is it also includes your Google local listing. So you can, from what it looks like, you can even publish to Google local listings from there. So that's kind of a nice advantage. So Buffer is another great alternative if you care about posting. If you want to make great images, Canva is one of the best options out there. So I don't know if any of you are already using Canva, but Canva has become sort of the de facto non-real designer's design tool. It has, if you think of social media, you need those header images for all of your accounts. So, those big square headers like on Facebook. It already has has templates, and it has the like dimensions for all of these different accounts that you might want to create. Let me show you an example. Is anyone using Canva right now? If you're using Canva, you can just say, yes, I love it. Okay, Amy, you're using it. Canva to me is like easily the best money I spend on a social media tool every month. But essentially what you can do is create all sorts of different assets, and they have pre-created templates for everything. So let's say I go into an Instagram post. Let me go back to the templates. Hang on. Here we go, templates. So I can browse templates by categories. So let's say I am looking at, where's social media? Oh, hang on. If I want to look at social media, let's say I'm looking at Instagram posts, I can click here and it has tons and tons of templates that I can use for Instagram posts. And then you can swap out the background image, change the text color, and edit basically every element of it. What I really like though about it is that you can also do the covers. So, like that big cover image behind your Facebook account, you can even create that on here. So what I really like is that it's really, really, really easy to do stuff. And Carla has said it's great for sharing. There's so many choices. Yeah. And Amy says they have a floral specific area. So that's pretty cool. I didn't know they had that. But we can go in here. Let's type in floral and see what shows up. And so here we go. So these are floral templates. And again, you can swap out the background images and things like that in order to really make it work for you and your purposes. But it's one of the, I think it's like what, $10 a month or something. Let's look at the plans. Yeah, it works out to $9.16. Well, I'm in euros, but it works out to about $10 a month, maybe 20, depending on the plan that you have. And you can really, really, really create beautiful images really, really, really easily. So I always recommend Canva because as you think about your use of social media, there's all these different images you'll need to create, and then you can start to easily create them. One of the things that we do, let me see if I can log in really quickly if it remembers me. Okay, no, I don't know my password. But one of the things that I really love that you can do within Canva is, like, for us, we have a certain brand guidelines that we want to use. So we have our color, which is orange, right? We have our logo. We have fonts that we prefer to use. You can actually set all of those up as templates. And then you create a really consistent brand's look and feel across your content by using the same colors. And we don't use them 100% of the time. Like, I might be doing something cute and this kind of a font works better than my brand font, but it's a really easy way to create brand consistency with your imagery as well. So I really love Canva for that. I think it's one of the best and most effective tools to create images. And you can also use the mobile app for it. So I always use the mobile app when I'm doing it. If I just want to create stuff on the go from my phone, I'll create them. And then I think within the app, you can also share directly to the social networks. Some social media scheduling tools are even starting to incorporate Canva directly in them. So we use a more enterprise tool, but it actually has a Canva integration where we can just push stuff to our scheduler really quickly. So there's lots of different options there. The next tool that I want to share with you, maybe you guys are going to think this is a little bit weird because this isn't strictly a social media management tool, but the tool is called Asana. I don't know if anyone uses this. There's other tools like it, but what I love about Asana is, one, it's free. So if you don't like to spend money, this is a good option. What Asana is it's a task management tool. And the reason that I like this for marketing is because we talk about content calendars, right? And having a strategy. And we talk about, if you're thinking about your broader marketing, maybe Mother's Day, you want to start your marketing 2 weeks in advance. Maybe it's a month in advance. I have no idea, right? But sometime in advance. And what you can do with Asana that I really like is, one, you can have multiple people that each have tasks assigned to them. But then two, you can create recurring tasks. So maybe every month I create a task that says review analytics, 30 minutes. And then for Mother's Day, I could say maybe a month out, I'm going to say 1 hour to create all of my Mother's Day social assets and schedule them to go out. And what I like about Asana is it's basically just a task scheduler, but you can create a task, subtasks, you can add comments. So it's especially helpful if you're maybe working with a team. So let's say I have somebody else on my team that I'm going to have create the images. I could assign them a task for Mother's Day a month in advance and say, create 6 images. Here's the special deals we want to have, and here's the price points. And then they go to Canva, create the images, and schedule them. But what I love about Asana is it's 100% free. There is a paid account, but I've used this tool for over 10 years and I have never felt the need to upgrade. I want to just donate money to them because I don't need a paid account, but I could not live without this. But my whole team uses this. And what it allows us to do is just really keep track of what's supposed to happen when and who's supposed to do what to get us ahead of things, right? Because one of the things that I think can be really frustrating as a business owner is that, let's say Mother's Day is coming up. If you've not really planned it out, and on top of all the things you have to be doing, you now are also trying to make social media content, it could feel really overwhelming. But if you know these major holidays up front, you can sort of pre-plan and pre-organize yourself so that you have everything sort of scheduled out and ready to go. So what I like about Asana is it's basically a task management system. But I use this not just for social media, but for everything to make sure we never miss a beat, especially with anything that's recurring or holiday driven, so that everyone knows what needs to happen. And of course, you can use this beyond social media. We use this for everything that we do with any client. So for example, if we bring in a new client where I'm doing a workshop, let's say, I'll have tasks that say, okay, 3 weeks out, check in, do this, 2 weeks out, do this. So you could even do this for other types of project management that you might have and maybe are doing, informally or using Excel or something like that. But if you think of other projects that are repetitive, where you just want to manage a timeline around it, it's really, 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 really powerful for that kind of stuff. Another tool that might be interesting for you, this one is, I would say, a teeny tiny bit more technical, but it's called Zapier. And if anyone uses Zapier, you can let me know. But what Zapier basically does is it's basically a connector of different platforms. So for example, let's say you like to recommend flowers for rainy days because it brightens people's smile. You could create, it's called a Zap that says, if it's raining, send me a text message that, or if the weather says it'll rain tomorrow, send me a text message. And then I could incorporate that into my marketing. I could create a Zap that says, if there's a new video on this YouTube channel, post it on my Facebook page. And you can do that from your own YouTube channel, or I think you could even do it from someone else's. So let's say maybe there's somebody else who shares really great tips consistently. You could say, post anytime this YouTube channel has a new video, post it on my Facebook page. If you have a blog, anytime there's a blog post, post it on my Facebook page or send it out on Twitter. So essentially what it does, and you might need to sort of look at it to see some use cases that make sense to your specific business, but it basically automates things that you would want to do automatically. So you also could, who was it who shared earlier that somebody had shared earlier, Shelby was saying, well, when I'm going to post something on Instagram, I just tick that button so then it also goes to Facebook. And then you're doing it through that tool. But you also could do that through Zapier. So maybe you're posting on Facebook and you also want it to go to your LinkedIn company page or your personal LinkedIn profile. You could do that if you don't want to use a social media scheduler. Zapier can do that for you. So essentially what it does is it will take one piece of content and post it in multiple places. So that's the other sort of big advantage of using Zapier. It is very cool. The key is thinking about how you're going to use it. But I use this. I mean, I have a different type of business, but like if I run a webinar, it feeds the people from the webinar from GoToWebinar into my email automation software, for example. All sorts of stuff like this that you can do with it. And if you look here, I'll show it to you on a browser just because I can. But I'll show it to you on a browser because it's very cool. And when I say it's a little more technical, it's like a very, very little amount more technical. but it connects like all sorts of different things. Like you could have it send you an email for something as well. So these are all calendar events. Let's see if we can view all of the apps that it has available. But it's basically automating two things. So you say when this happens, and there's like there's almost 4,000 different things that you could set it to connect with. So I know people who do this, like maybe you like to share articles. You could say, if I save an article to Evernote, automatically post it to Facebook or something like that. And I hear someone was off mute for a second. Did you have a comment? Or again, it could always just be that button getting pressed. Okay. But Zapier is very, very cool. I think it's one of the coolest ways to connect and automate things that you're doing online. So I use it in a lot of different ways. Actually, a lot of people use it as a personal productivity tool. So you could even think of it in that context as well. But it seriously is a ginormous, ginormous time saver if you're doing anything sort of manually. So when it comes to tools, one of the most common questions I get about social media is, what tools should I use? And I shared with you some of the most popular tools, but there's literally thousands of social media tools out there. What I would really recommend for you is step back and think, like, what are your time drains? What is causing you stress or issues? And then look for a tool that will alleviate that. So if you're saying, okay, I just need a scheduler, I need to be able to put stuff in and have it go out and not think about it again. Great. Buffer is perfect for that. Sendable is also good. I know somebody suggested Planoly as well. So if you think about what it is you want to do, then you can easily find a tool for that. But everyone has kind of their own way of working and their own pitfalls. So there's different tools that might work for you. Here's what's cool about this wonderful world of the internet we live in now, that for almost anything you're going to want to do, there is probably a tool that will do it for you. So years ago, this was probably, many years ago, almost 10 years ago, I worked with a restaurant and they were like, I wish we could do text message reminders when someone's reservation is ready. Guess what? Even 10 years ago, there were like 10 apps for like $20 a month that would just do that. So there's tools and apps for almost everything beyond just social media. But as you think of your needs for social media, there's probably tools that will help you with that. And a small amount of time up front can result in big time savings when you sort of put it together. So I want to give you some productivity tips that will help you. Again, time was one of the most popular things that is creating stress for a lot of you when it comes to social media. And I get it. It can be time consuming. But first of all, if you have a workflow and a process, that's going to dramatically reduce your time. We post on, I think, 5 social networks, including my own personal ones. And we post on some of them as much as once a day. If we try and do this even just week by week, it takes a minimum of an hour and a half a week, just because you have to log in, you get set up, you get used to making the pictures, etc. When we do it monthly, in about 4 hours, we can schedule out our whole month. So we save 50% of our time just by having a scheduling tool and a workflow. And then anything happening in the moment is just gravy. It's just on top of that. So really think about getting this sort of workflow, whether it's weekly or monthly, but get off of this daily posting wagon, because that will just, I think it saps your time, but also it's really not great for your productivity because you're constantly stressed and worrying about getting it done. So the first productivity tip I have for you here is have a plan every time you log into a social network. So one of the challenges you can very easily run into is that you're just draining your time looking around and not really doing much. So every time I log into Facebook, for example, if I start on my home screen of my own personal account, I'm going to kind of check what people are doing. Okay, then I stop doing that. I go over to my business page. And then I say, oh, what's this notification mean? Interesting. And it's easy to just waste time. Same with Instagram. I can go into Instagram and easily get sucked down the rabbit hole of just kind of looking at stuff. And that's not really adding value for my business. So whether you're doing this or somebody else on your team is, what you need to do is have a plan and a checklist of what you do when you log in. So I gave you that example of LinkedIn, right? The first thing I do on LinkedIn is I always check my messages. But even there, I need a better plan than just check my messages first. I need to delete stuff first and foremost, and then only respond to the messages that matter. Or maybe I have an executive assistant who logs in and deletes stuff for me so that I'm only even seeing the stuff that's already been customized. The key to success is to have a plan up front and to really think about, okay, what is my plan every time I log in somewhere, in what priority order, so you're not wasting time. The second thing is use your phone smartly. What I love about mobile is that it does give us the opportunity to do things quickly in real time and in the moment. And so one of the things that I really like about using my phone strategically is, one, if there is content happening in the moment, I just need to train myself to find the opportunities and start capitalizing on them. And this can be something you train your staff in as well, right? It could be, if you're using a social media scheduling tool, maybe everyone has access to schedule stuff and you can review it. But basically what you can do is get in the habit of taking content in the moment and getting it set up. Because one of the things that's really great about doing it that way is it doesn't feel like such a chore. So even if you're like browsing the internet and you see a great video on how to make your flowers last longer, cool, just share that to your account right away, right? Share that to Facebook with a few thoughts. But the more you do this stuff in the moment as it's happening, and the more you train yourself to do it that way, the easier it gets. To be honest, I used to be somewhat good at this before the pandemic, where now everyone's working from home, so I can never find good in the moment stuff. But when I was traveling, I really started training myself. Every training session, I'm going to find one thing to post about. Every time I was on a plane, I would think of one remarkable thing during the travel experience that I wanted to share, or an insight. And I really started training myself to look for and post in the moment content that I knew would meet my business goals and be relevant for my audience. The second thing is get notifications on your phone, or turn off notifications on your phone. So this is maybe a bizarre comment to some of you, but here's why I say get notifications and turn off notifications. The first thing is, when it comes to getting notifications, if you have a low volume of people sending you comments, what I like about getting notified on my phone is I can easily see and reply to them, and it doesn't take a lot of time. If I think of my Facebook page, for example, well, maybe that's a bad example. If I think of my Instagram account, that's a better one. We're not posting so often there. Our business just isn't as visual. And so I'm probably just getting 1 or 2 comments a week. It's great for me to get those on my phone so I can respond quickly, and I don't need to have a separate process because the volume is low. So if you don't get a lot of comments, get notifications on your phone for these things so you can just respond quickly when you have a few minutes here and there. On the other hand, if you have a high volume account, so let's say you're averaging 10 comments a day, it can start to really, really, really overwhelm you. And so what I would suggest in that case is turn off your notifications and use the social media management tools. So if I'm using, let's say, Hootsuite, I can log into Hootsuite and respond to LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, and I think Pinterest, all from one spot. And then I don't have to get distracted all day with notifications. I know maybe it's first thing in the day and last thing in the day. I spend 10 minutes responding, and it's super efficient. So figure out a way to get my notifications that's helpful to you. And then, of course, you can create images, videos, and edit everything directly on your phone. So that can be a good time saver for you, especially if you find you have downtime during the day. And everyone's different. Some people like a desktop environment to create content. Other people prefer doing it on their phone. There's not a right answer. It's really about what works for you, but really think about what maximizes your efficiency. Because again, an extra 5 minutes a day, that adds up to over 25 hours a year, which is like over half a week of time. So really it is important to be as efficient as possible and think about how you're doing things, not just what you're doing. The next productivity tip I have is to set a timer. So you can also just limit how much time you spend. So if you think of Instagram, maybe you already have your post scheduled out, but you like to go in and do some community management. You want to comment on other people's stuff, give some things likes. That's great. But you could easily spend 30 minutes. And there's some point where you have diminishing returns. So I always say, like, set a timer for that kind of stuff. I'm going to spend 10 minutes to comment on stuff, and that's it, or 5 minutes. The next tip is decide what matters. And I'm going to get to the questions and discussion I've seen coming into the chat. But what you need to decide a little bit, and there's not necessarily a single right answer for this, because every business is different in your maturity and your resources. But you need to decide what matters and focus on doing those things really well, and sometimes be okay with not doing everything super well. So if I think of my own social media presence, right? We're a digital marketing company. We have to be on every social network, but not every network contributes customers to us equally. So LinkedIn gets us many customers. Facebook organically, without running ads, gets us very few new customers. So what I want to be able to do is to decide smartly, okay, I'm going to focus on LinkedIn because that's where I know I get customers from. And it's okay if my Facebook isn't perfect. My bar on Facebook maybe is what I call keep the lights on, which is post stuff, make it look okay, but I'm not trying to set the world on fire, because I know even if I double my Facebook results, that time is not as well spent as if I spent my time doubling my LinkedIn results. So it's okay to decide what matters and decide where you're going to focus your energy. And so one of the questions I see Samantha had asked is, should you post the same thing on Facebook and Instagram, or should they both be different? Excellent question. And then a few of you have shared perspectives. So Shelby is saying, I usually post the same post to Facebook and Instagram. We have slightly different audiences on each. So Facebook is sort of older locals, and Instagram is a lot of brides and slightly younger customers. And so then the next question, Janet had said, do you change your hashtags on each platform? And Shelby has said, I usually do hashtags on Instagram, but not on Facebook. So if you think about this idea of posting to multiple social networks, there's a lot of opinions out there, and ultimately you need to choose what's the right resource mix for you. But you can easily take a post and post it on multiple social networks at once using one of these tools, whether you use Zapier to just automate it, or if you use a social media scheduling tool. You can create a post, set it for multiple social networks, and usually you can even customize it for each network. So I could create a Mother's Day post, and then I can customize it a little bit for each platform. If I wanted to really look like I'm not just posting the same stuff, I could set it to go for different days from different places. So maybe I post on Instagram on Monday, and I'm going to post it on Facebook on Wednesday, let's say. So there's no end to how complex you can get with some of this stuff. What I think you need to think a little bit about is, what are your resources and where do you have the biggest impact? What I usually recommend if you're cross-posting. So cross-posting means you're posting one thing in multiple places. The first thing I would say is know the platform that matters most to you and optimize for that. So if Instagram is your biggest platform, create the posts to do as well as possible on Instagram and say, it's okay if it doesn't look perfect for Facebook then. Because maybe you reach an average of 1,000 people on Instagram, but only 30 people on Facebook. If that was the case with my business, and I'm reaching 1,000 people on Instagram and 30 people on Facebook, yeah, I want to invest 90% of my effort on Instagram and 10% of my effort on Facebook. And that's okay. So you can use your audience size or your analytics number to help guide these decisions, but it's okay to post the same thing on both networks. If you want to take it one step better than just creating one post and having it go to both places, one step better would be to customize it a little bit. So maybe I have the same image, but kind of like Shelby said, I do hashtags on Instagram, but I don't do them on Facebook. If I'm using a scheduling tool, I then can customize it for each platform. So I could then take the same picture, say post it on Facebook and Instagram, but then I can go in and edit each one to make it do a little bit better in each platform. So I could do that. The other thing I could do to take it up one notch is to schedule them for different dates and times. So unless it really is sale starts tomorrow, sale ends Friday, something like that, what I could do is post different messages at different times so that all of my social networks don't just seem to be repeaters of each other, right? And then if you wanted to take it to the next level, you could post entirely unique content for each network, because it is true that the audiences are different in different places and they have different expectations. So your Instagram audience tends to be a little bit younger. They want pictures that look more real time, and they want a lot of hashtags. Your Facebook audience is going to skew a little bit older. You're probably looking at the more like 40, 50 age range is where you're really going to find your heaviest Facebook users. And there, maybe you're looking at posting content that's more for the things that they're shopping for. So maybe it's more sentimental photos or sentimental products, whereas Instagram, you're targeting younger people who are more impulsive. So the point I'm trying to make is that there's no end to how customized you can be. And if you read best practices, a lot of the best practices will say customize for every platform. But what you need to be able to do is sort of look at it through the lens of what is my return on investment there? And is it worth it for the results that I'm going to get? And do I have time to do this well? Right? And there's no shame. I think the reason a lot of people feel so overwhelmed with social media is because they read all the best practices and say, okay, I need unique content for every platform, and I have to do hashtags here, but no hashtags here. And video works best on Facebook, but it doesn't work well on Instagram. And if you have the resources to do all of that to that degree, that's great. And you will probably, I shouldn't say absolutely, but you will probably get the best results if you do that. If as a small business owner, you don't have time to do that all well, and it's going to feel overwhelming to you, that's also fine. Choose one platform, decide what really matters, and then focus your efforts there so that you're getting results in one platform at least. So I love the discussion and the sharing happening in the chat. Because it really depends a little bit on the resources that you have. And then what I always think about is, so what I would do if I were looking at this, I'm just going to go back to this slide, is I would look a little bit. I've trained my brain. So I just kind of think in terms of this investment impact idea. But what I would ask myself is, okay, if I'm thinking that I'm going to post completely different content for each channel, how much time is that going to take? And how much better do I really think Facebook will do if I create unique content for it? And the reason I'm kind of picking on Facebook is because organically, it's really hard to get a lot of visibility anymore. Not to say it can't be done, but it's harder and harder. So essentially, what you want to make sure that you are doing is that you want to make sure that you're using the resources smartly you're using your resources smartly in order to drive impact. And so what I always would look at with that is, well, how impactful do I think that is going to be? And do I really have the time and energy for it? Because again, I've worked with a range of businesses, and sometimes I feel overwhelmed when I think of all the best practices I could be using everywhere. But if I can step back from it a little and say, well, where am I at now? And what are my next big opportunities to get better results? And then I do those. And maybe in 6 months, when I'm really nailing Instagram and I say, okay, now I want to up my game on Facebook. Now's the time to do it. Then I can start looking at that. But don't be afraid to decide what matters to you right now. And especially where a lot of businesses end up is that they start by getting these presences everywhere. And then you feel, I call it like you got to feed the beast. So then you feel like, okay, but I got to post something on Facebook because I have that and I have my Google business listing and I have this and I have this. But really look at what matters. And one of the best ways to do this is to look at data and metrics. And you may have noticed I'm a huge data person because I think a lot of the times we have opinions, but data and numbers are going to tell you the truth of the matter. So if your starting point is maybe you're active on 3 networks, look at how big is your audience on each one and how many people are you reaching either on each post or a month. And let that be your guide of your personal impact. And again, it's going to be different for different businesses. There's probably some of you on here who on Instagram are reaching thousands of people with each post. And then there might be someone who's reaching 20 people with each post. Same with Facebook. There's going to be a broad scale. So you really need to decide where do you want to focus first and what really matters to you. Because if you try and do everything well, I think you'll end up frustrating yourself a little bit. But if you try and do one step better, one step better, one step better, then you're going to get to a great place over time. Because again, almost any network you look at of someone who's doing an excellent job, they did not start out that way. I've done these trainings with FTD probably for 10 years. And if I think of the kind of Instagram posts I was pulling from accounts 7, 8 years ago, I should have pulled some examples just to show you the difference. But when I started talking about Instagram to florists, the photos were horrible. They were really, really bad. And it was just like, don't take totally ugly, blurry pictures was the message, right? Now, most of you are doing good photos. Now we're talking about leveling that game up even further. So it's okay to think about where you are and then try and get to that next level. And then the last productivity tip I have for you is choose the right resources. There may be other resources that you have that can help and support you with some of this. So I worked with a local business recently. They were a bakery, but the owner was really frustrated because she didn't use Instagram at all. She found it difficult and frustrating. Well, she has 4 employees that are young and on Instagram every day. And their business isn't such that when the employees are working, they're nonstop busy. Sometimes they do have 2 or 3 minutes while they're waiting for new customers to come in or somebody's picking something. Look for opportunities to use your other resources to help you with this stuff. So if you have employees where this is more natural to them, great, engage them in the process and figure out what it looks like to use other resources in order to drive your results. So, and I'll sort of we have about 10 minutes left. So I'm going to do an open call for questions. So I know over these 3 workshops, we covered tons and tons of stuff, but you may still have questions about something from a previous week or something on your mind that we didn't talk about. This is a great opportunity for you to ask anything, and I'm happy to share some perspective with you. But please feel free to type in any questions you have as we look to wrap up. But the 3 things you want to think about is build a workflow, use tools, and get organized. The 4th thing that I will say that I didn't put on here is look at data to help make your decisions. So again, if your goal on social media is awareness, you want to reach people, take a look at how many people are you actually reaching? Because that's going to help you to understand your effort. And then you can say, okay, well, right now I'm only reaching 20 people. My goal is to triple that number by the end of the month. And here's the plan that I have in place to do it. But one of the things that you want to start doing, and it's not difficult, it just takes a little bit of discipline, is to start looking at and knowing your numbers. I don't know if any of you I love watching these business shows. And I used to watch Gordon Ramsay. He had some show where he would go in and like make over restaurants and yell at everyone. And there's a show called The Profit. where the guy goes in and he ends up investing in businesses, but he goes in and like asks them what they're doing and everything else. And the one thing you notice that these guys do when they go into a business is they ask them questions about their numbers, right? Like, what is your average cost? What is this? These different numbers. And you should start to get a sense of your numbers on social media. You should get a sense of how many people am I reaching, for example? How much traffic is this driving to my website, if that's one of your goals? Now, Instagram, that's much more difficult because you can't click on Instagram content unless it's an ad. You can do the link in bio, but it's a little bit more limited. But what you want to start to be able to do is kind of know the impact that each thing that you're doing has. And then you'll be smarter and better able to think about your resources and what you're doing well and not well. So try to sort of learn and know your numbers when it comes to social media, because that's going to make a really big difference in terms of your overall effectiveness. So I'm not seeing any new questions come into the chat. I do want to make sure. And I see somebody's happy to make a comment. Excellent. Do you want to come off of mute and share?
Yeah, hi, Krista, Italo here.
Hi.
And thank you, by the way, three fabulous sessions. I think when we started, you're right. It was always trying to take images when we could, what we thought was cool. And it would drive us nuts because we could never really find the time and it was never programmed. And then we kind of stepped back at it. And so my sister and I, who's my partner, we're not designers, we're business operators. So we hire people to design for us. A lot of people on the call are designers. So you'll hire somebody to do your driving. You hire an accountant to do your books. You hire professionals to take care of things that we can't do. And I think as florists, we think we can do it all. And when we realized that social media was a huge part of our business, we hired someone. And it's crazy, but when my sister told me how much it was going to cost, I said, that kind of sounds like a lot. And then, like you said, when we broke it down, it was just hiring a professional to take care of the monthly. It's monthly meet. We set this out quarterly. So Mother's Day was done, right after Christmas. It was always already set up and ready to go. And then we were able to add in the picture of my sister on the ladder, that kind of thing. So I think we're always afraid of hiring because because it's a nickel and dime business and we're struggling. It's always tough. But I think your results will speak for themselves because it did for us. It took off. It wasn't even, we were horrible. And now we're kind of happy. I don't know if we're any better at it, but we're happy at what it looks like. And the followers just increase like crazy. And so I think that's just look at it as if, I don't think I'm probably the oldest guy on the call. I'm one of the oldest guys on the call. Got to be. I can't do social media, and nor would I try. I'd rather hire a professional to take care of it, and it works really, really well.
And would you be comfortable sharing like a range of what you pay someone to support you in this? Because I bet people are wondering like how much.
Yeah. So we do. I have a photographer. We hire a photographer to do we shoot our own web stuff as well. So we have a mixture of FTD images and whatnot that are available to us, but we shoot our own stuff. So I hire a photographer there, and she's about $30 an hour when she comes in. Usually it's a half a day, and we'll schedule a photo shoot. So we'll take, anywhere between 20 and 30, 40 different pictures of specific arrangements. And so that goes into the library and it goes online. And she charges me something, I can't remember what it is, but probably another $30 an hour to clean up the images. And it's really not super expensive, I think. Then we have a social media guy who does post, and to the point of somebody else, we used to have the same posts on the Instagram and Facebook because we didn't have the time to do it. But now they're specific, and the hashtags are different for everything because that's what we pay him for. He's $500 a month. And he posts, regularly. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I know something's going to go out there. I knew something was going to be out there for Father's Day. And it was something that he took months and months ago of my father and my son in a picture that was kind of cool. And so that's $500 a month there. But it doesn't have to be that much. It could be less. You can start off with less posts, right? Less work.
Yeah.
And he comes in every 2-3 months and just spends a couple of hours in the flower shop, constantly taking pictures of everything, close-ups of the designers, close-ups of the arrangements, close-ups of the flowers, flowers coming off the truck, all kinds of stuff. I think he's crazy, but then he uses it as content, and he has some really cool images. He doesn't use a phone. He uses a decent camera because he knows how. But even that said, when we take our pictures, iPhones today, and I have a Google phone, they take phenomenal pictures. So you can take some good stuff. So that's what we're spending there.
Yeah, and I can tell you from what I know of prices, you're getting a really good deal, especially you have good engagement on your content. It's not like the thing I always think to beware of for small businesses is these like big agencies that manage hundreds and hundreds of small businesses because they don't put the care and attention in, right? But it sounds like you have a person who really is intimate with your business and does a great job for you. So that's great. And you're getting a good deal. I can tell you that.
Found him. So the way we were following someone else, following a cousin, one of my cousins owns a restaurant, and I was following his social media, and it was going great. And I'm like, who does it? And so follow somebody, see if you like what they're doing locally, and ask them, hey, who takes care of your social media? And sure enough, it was this, a young kid. He's 22 years old, 23 years old, something like that. And we called him up, and it was a compliment to my cousin. And this guy loves working with us. It's great. And yes, by the way, Janet, yeah, that's Canadian dollars.
But I think in US, I think you're getting a great deal because I'm from Toronto, but I lived in the US for 12 years. So I would say if you could find that in US dollars as well, that's a great deal. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I think I didn't realize you had outsourced to an agency, but what's nice is you're outsourcing, plus you still have that in the moment stuff, and it's not eating up your whole life, right? So it can be done.
I have a question for you that is not, that it's a little different. We talked about a lot of stuff in social media. I apologize for the call at the back. Email marketing. Do we still consider that social? Because I remember before all this was around, that was the way I used to communicate to all my friends. And then it turned into emailing all our customers. And that for me is free, besides the time, and is measurable and is huge. What do you think of email marketing and where that's going?
Email is vital. I think, the thing about social media is that, let's say you have 1,000 followers, 100 of them are going to see your stuff, and it's not even the same 100. So nothing is really guaranteed. With email, you're not guaranteed someone opens it, but you can know if it's getting into their inbox. I think most established business owners who use email well will say, I wish I would have done this sooner. So if you think about Mother's Day, for example, right? If you're out ahead with an email, hey, don't forget your mom on Mother's Day, and you're giving them that content through email well in advance, they can just click through your email and buy immediately. And so email is huge, huge, huge still. And I think especially, when we think of that marketing funnel, you think of getting more out of your existing customers or converting interest into a customer. So maybe someone's kind of interested and hasn't needed you yet. That's what email is going to be great for. Even if you're not doing email marketing yet, one tip I would give you is start building your email list now. So come up with different systems to start collecting email addresses of your customers. And depending on where you're located, it's a good habit to make sure you have their permission to email to them. It's legally required in many places. So, it can be as simple as when they're buying, like, hey, would you mind? We can send you an email we have discounts and blah, blah, blah. And even you can get them to write it down for you. You can have an email opt-in form on your website. You can say, hey, we want to send you a survey to see what your experience was like. Could we get your email address? I mean, literally, there's a lot of different things you can do, but getting the email addresses of your customers, again, even if they're writing it down, putting it into a system. Honestly, I was just at a store, and I could save $5 by giving them my email address. They had me do it on the spot. and they're like, fill it out now, wait a minute, and you'll get the coupon in your email. And then they scanned the coupon, right? So they made sure it was activated. They had the right email address for $5, and I bet you could do it for a lot less. Tina is saying, I ask if they want to be added to our customer list at the sale. Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, anything you can do to incentivize them to give you their email, even if you don't have a plan yet. What you can do is say, okay, once I get 300 emails, then I'm going to start sending out something every month. That's fine. Or then I'll start sending it out when I have special events and sales. All of that is fine, but just start collecting them now. And you can set that goal for yourself. When I've collected so many, like you seem very ROI minded, thinking like, what would I rather spend money on and do myself? But it costs the same amount of energy to create an email, whether you spend it to one person or 100 people or 1 million people. So maybe give yourself something, okay, after I get 500 emails, that's when I'm going to get serious about this, or 100 or whatever. But just start collecting them and storing them. Even if you store them in an Excel file for now, it doesn't much matter. But the best way to get email addresses is to ask in person. So you can put a form on your website. If you get some amount of traffic, that's not a bad idea. But definitely start collecting emails. And I love another good comment. The most successful emails I send out are the ones to my family and friends. Yeah, start there. I mean, when I started my email list, I had a 75% open rate because I just literally pulled my family and friends from my emails. You're not like legally, that's probably not super accepted, but nobody complained. So it was okay because they were actually my friends. But any email lists that you have, and then just set a number. When I get this many, I'm going to start sending. But when it comes to driving action, getting someone to buy, getting someone to do something, hands down, email is going to be the best way to do it. So I would always focus on email. We did have a question come in from Amy during that discussion. If you're just starting out and you do have more time than money, what's the best way to get started? Choose one channel, ideally where you already have maybe like, look, I think a lot of small businesses that are just starting, similar to the comment, start emailing your friends and family. Start with your friends and family. I mean, what's nice about flowers is many average humans buy them, right? It's not like you're selling something super niche. Like my family doesn't really care what I do. But think about where are your friends and family? Where do you communicate with them already? And maybe make that the first social network that you get started on. And then just get consistent and see, what do people responding to? What's interesting? I also always like to look at people who do it better than me. So what's really cool is you can just go and look at florists on Instagram from around the world and see what is getting traction, what is getting comments and likes, what kinds of things are they doing, and try stuff like that to start building up some initial traction. But the other thing that you have the advantage of doing right now is looking at other florists and taking the bits that you think they're doing well and start putting them into your plan and seeing how they're doing. And that's, I think, the easiest way to get started. But really, you can really sort of harness that small business model. Hey, we're a small business. I'm starting out. I would appreciate your support. And really intimately get to know people who could potentially work with you. I had a friend I'm originally from Toronto, but I lived in the US for 12 years. Now I'm actually in Amsterdam. And one of my friends started a cupcake business and she would deliver them to people. So for Mother's Day, I ordered 5 for 5 different moms that I knew that I normally wouldn't have ever even bought cupcakes for or anything, but I really wanted to support her in her business. And it was just a really simple gesture that supported her. The cupcakes, like everyone won from this, right? I was shy a few dollars, but I was happy to do it because I sent something meaningful to somebody and I supported my friend's business. And I think if you think of that kind of angle as a starting point, that's a really good way to get started. We always tell nonprofits friend raising before fundraising. So as you look to sort of think about who your friends are as a business, whether it's other businesses nearby, people in your community, or even your friends and family, start looking at them as people that can help you if you're really starting from the ground up. So with that, I can see we're a little over time, so I do want to wrap up. There's a link to the resources that's been dropped again. I did throw those 2 social media charts into the resources folder, so definitely take a look at those. And you'll have access to these resources for a while, so we're not going to take them down anytime soon. Shelby has asked, which I think is a great question, what's everyone's Instagram? She would love to follow, and maybe you can also help each other's engagements by liking each other's posts. I think that's a really nice idea. And of course, you also can follow FTD on Instagram as well. So I don't know if there's a way to get a formal list, but if you want to, as a starting point, just drop your Instagram handle into the chat. That's probably a nice way to start. And then we can at least see everyone else and start by following each other. So definitely feel free to drop them in. I think it's a nice idea because, again, I think something about community support is always a nice place to get started, especially those of you who are just starting out. So I see some of those coming in. So I am going to pass it over to Janet has said they'll send a list of attendees. So Janet, I'll pass it over to you. Maybe you can kind of share how they'll get that list and also wrap us up for the day, because I know we're a little bit over.
Yeah, thanks, Krista. This was an amazing final session. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you've been on one of the 2 last weeks as well, you saw I sent out an email with the link to the recording that was available for you. And I sent the Dropbox link again and that. So we'll send one final email this week with the list to everybody that's attended, so you can share and kind of follow each other again, as Krista said, and help each other out. And then the recording for all 3, the first 2 are already available on demand on the FTD Mercury Network Florist YouTube. The other one will be there later tonight as soon as I can get it uploaded. And so then those will all be available for you as well. And then for more education programming, because this isn't it, we still have plenty of months left in this year. So go to ftdi.com and register for upcoming free webinars and design shows, and view links for all of the past education programs on demand. So thanks everyone for attending. We appreciate you taking the time to work so hard on your business.